What is the greatest weapon a god like Kratos possesses? Is it the Leviathan axe, the blades of chaos, or is it the past itself, a history so brutal, so painful, that even the all-seeing gods of Asgard seem to look the other way? Welcome to MythMode. I dive deep into the legends, the lore, and the untold theories of your favorite mythic worlds. Today, we're tackling one of the most profound silences in the Nine Realms. Kratos, the Ghost of Sparta, carries the ashes of his murdered first wife and daughter on his very skin. Their deaths defined him, cursed him, and fueled his genocide of the Greek pantheon. So why, throughout his entire journey in the Norse realms, do Odin, Thor, and Freya, gods known for their cunning and knowledge, never once speak of Lysandra and Calliope? Is it a narrative oversight or a deliberate, chilling piece of the puzzle? Stick with me, because the answer lies at the intersection of trauma, divine strategy, and masterful storytelling. First, we need to anchor this in the horrific truth of Kratos' past. Before Midgard, before Freya and Atreus, there was Sparta. He wasn't a god then, but a mortal captain. He had a wife, Lysandra, a daughter, Calliope. This was his first family, his human family. Their story ended in a single, cursed act of violence. Tricked by the god, Ares, Kratos was driven into a blind rage and slaughtered them with his own hands in a village temple. An oracle then bound their ashes to his skin, a permanent physical curse. This is the source of the Ghost of Sparta, the foundational trauma that created the god-slayer we knew in Greece. Now, hold that image. The ash-covered warrior screaming at the skies of Olympus. Cut to Midgard. Decades later, here, Kratos is a man of deliberate, heavy silence. He has built a second life with a new family, Faye, a Jotun, and their son, Atreus. This is not a simple continuation. It is a conscious, desperate reinvention. His Spartan family was a source of public, world-shaking rage and vengeance. His Norse family is a source of private, guarded peace and protection. Think of the contrast. Lysandra and Calliope were taken from him by divine manipulation, their deaths fueling a genocide of the Greek pantheon. Faye dies of natural causes, her death setting a different path, one of guidance, not vengeance. Atreus is a son he must raise, not a memory he must avenge. Kratos isn't just hiding his past in the Norse realms. He has actively buried his first life to protect his second. The man who once defined himself by the ashes on his arms now covers them with wrappings, both literal and emotional. This chasm between his two lives, the screaming ghost and the quiet father, is the heart of our mystery. Because it begs the question, do the all-seeing Aesir know what lies buried? And if they do, why, in all the Nine Realms, would they never speak its name? The simplest answer is often the most powerful. The Aesir might not know the specifics. Consider this. Kratos arrived in the Norse realms not as a conquering god, but as a fugitive from his own destiny. He took a new name, Farbody, and lived as a reclusive woodsman. His most explosive encounters with the Norse gods are reactive. They come for him because of his conflict with Baldur and his identity as Faye's husband, not because of his Grecian history. He never speaks of Sparta. He never speaks of Olympus. To Atreus, his past is a series of vague warnings about the dangers of gods. Mimir, the smartest man alive, only pieces together Kratos' divine nature and his conflict with his own pantheon after knowing him for some time. The details of Lysandra and Calliope are locked deep within Kratos, a vulnerability he will never reveal. In a world where knowledge is power, Kratos' greatest defense is his silence. By not uttering their names, he protects their memory from being used as a weapon and protects Atreus from the crushing weight of that legacy. But let's assume, for a moment, that Odin does know. His ravens see much. He is a collector of prophecies and secrets. If he knew the full extent of Kratos' past, that this stranger single-handedly dismantled an entire pantheon, killing his own father, Zeus, and siblings like Poseidon and Hades, how would he react? This brings us to a darker, more strategic theory. The Aesir's silence is a tactical calculation. Mentioning Kratos' first family is playing with the most unstable primordial force in the Nine Realms, the Ghost of Sparta's fully unleashed rage. Odin's goal is control. He tries to recruit Kratos and Atreus to use them as pieces on his board. Provoking Kratos by mentioning the family he was tricked into murdering would be an act of catastrophic stupidity. It would instantly transform a potential pawn or stubborn ally into an unstoppable, focused engine of vengeance with nothing left to lose. Thor might be impulsive enough to taunt Kratos with it, but even he follows Odin's lead. The Aesir may see Kratos' buried trauma not as a weakness to exploit, but as a sleeping dragon best left undisturbed. Their war is with the giants and the prophecy of Ragnarok. Knowingly awakening a second, equally destructive apocalypse from another land makes no strategic sense. There's a third layer to this, one that exists outside the game world, and within the minds of its creators. This is the narrative and thematic reason. The God of War 2018 and Ragnarok saga is not about Kratos the destroyer of worlds. It's about Kratos the father. It's a deeply intimate story about breaking cycles of violence and learning to love again. For a new player, someone who never played the Greek games, Lysandra and Calliope are backstory. They are the previous family mentioned in a codex entry. But for the narrative to work, the emotional core must be the present relationship with Atreus. If Odin suddenly turned to Kratos in a cutscene and said, "How's that, daughter Calliope?" it would violently reframe the entire story for the player. It would shift the focus from "Can Kratos be a good father?" to Atreus, to "How is Kratos still functioning after that?" The developers masterfully allow that past to be felt through Kratos' behavior, his fear of Atreus' godhood, his reluctance to speak of mothers, his overwhelming guilt, without ever letting it verbally intrude. The silence of the eyesight preserves the story's chosen focus. It keeps the player's empathy anchored in the current struggle, making the moments where his past does visually bleed through, like in the Valhalla DLC, all the more powerful. So, why do the Aesir never mention Kratos' first family? It is the perfect confluence of all three reasons. In universe, Kratos has built a fortress of silence around his pain, and the Aesir, particularly Odin, have no tactical incentive to besiege it. To speak of them is to invite a cataclysm they cannot control. For us, the audience, it is a deliberate narrative choice to keep the heart of the story on the fragile, beautiful, and evolving bond between a broken father and his son. The silence isn't a plot hole. It's the space where the new story grows. The ashes on his skin may be fading, but the memory is etched into his soul. And perhaps that is the true mark of the Ghost of Sparta, not the visible curse, but the invisible weight he chooses to carry alone so that those around him can live in peace. If you want to explore more secrets buried in the myths, from the shores of Greece to the peaks of Midgard, subscribe to MythMode and hit the notification bell. We have countless more legends to unravel together. Until next time, stay curious.